You're listening to the Night Stalker Rescue. Episode 8. Khalil responded,
"These may not be the terms you hoped for, but I already have one pilot. My purposes would be better served by doing business with all of your people rather than the remaining pilot alone. This is a generous offer, Suicide, and time for this negotiation is running out. You understand that much, if your whispered words are any indication."
And that was it, I thought. The whispered words. He knew I was still in range, and the fact that he could hear me whispering indicated his men were close to capturing me. Why should he bother to expose himself? I stopped whispering and gave my next transmission in a normal voice. "Khalil," I said casually, "time for this negotiation is running out, but not for the reason you think."
"Oh?"
he asked, a sudden tinge of concern in his voice. He'd heard my increase in speaking volume, and his wheels were now spinning as he tried to ascertain how I could possibly have escaped his airtight perimeter.
"Please enlighten me, Suicide."
"I'm making my own safe passage, with the pilot, right now, and we'll be off this island before you realize what happened." I didn't key the transmit button as I spoke these words. Instead, I pressed and released the button quickly, sending alternating syllables over the air as if I were headed out of range, moving beyond the reach of his receiver. As I did so, I watched the clearing with the pistol grip of my rifle firmly in hand, reticle centered ahead of me. This was my last chance to draw him out, to make him fear that I was making a break for the coast, to goad him into reestablishing communications to continue our narrative. He hadn't broken cover into the sun-splotched clearing yet. Maybe he would now. And a moment later, I saw that my ploy had worked. Well, worked may have been an overstatement, because Khalil did break cover. I briefly saw a man pass my sights in the tall grass, trailed by an assistant toting a massive long-range radio on his back, following Khalil with the tether of the hand mic cord connecting them. But as I dropped my radio to take careful aim, they passed out of sight again, returning fleetingly to view seconds later as Khalil paced the clearing, trying to get reception. My view was so limited that when they stopped moving, I didn't see Khalil but the radio held by his assistant, whose back faced me in a momentarily stationary position.
"Suicide?"
he asked.
"Suicide, can you hear me?"
I could take out the radio with one shot and leave Khalil alive, or I could hold my fire in the hopes that he'd expose himself for a fatal bullet. The odds for the latter were a matter of chance, for the former a certainty. Or I could be a moment away from losing them both altogether. My gut instinct was to wait, to kill Khalil and accomplish the mission I'd been sent here to do, a grand slam of achieving everything at once. But then an odd voice spoke from the depths of my soul. The mission was no longer to kill Khalil. It was to rescue Josephine. I pumped the trigger once in a precision shot, then fired 3 more times as quickly as I could. The assistant and his radio dropped out of sight, and Khalil's transmission ended mid-word. I dropped my rifle, grabbing the grenade from my kit. Yanking the pin, I hurled it toward the clearing. It wouldn't fall anywhere near Khalil, or even his security elements, but that was fine with me. All I needed was the noise. It didn't come. Shit, I thought, there goes our brilliant plan. Instead of a blast, I only heard men shouting from the clearing, realizing that they were no longer the hunters, but the hunted. And then the grenade exploded. The earth trembled beneath my body, the explosion creating a victory cloud of jungle earth and incinerated plants that expanded in all directions. It had the added benefit of obscuring the line of visibility from the clearing to my firing position, and I desperately needed that concealment as I pushed myself to my feet and began charging back toward my team. To my rear, wild bursts of automatic gunfire erupted. I didn't break stride, instead juking a zigzag pattern between the trees, the jungle now providing a refuge of ballistic cover that I sprinted among as fast as I could manage. but it didn't sound like the gunfire was drawing nearer. The command element in the clearing probably thought they were under attack and were therefore more concerned with protecting their leader and spraying my previous firing position with bullets than maneuvering toward potential danger. 3 grenade blasts erupted in the distance to my front. The crushing explosions gave way to gunfire of all kinds, long automatic bursts to be sure, but also the precision fire of a disciplined shooter that could only be Josephine. I wouldn't be able to hear the rest of my team's suppressed shots, and that was just as well. The return fire gave ample indication of their current position. I shifted direction toward the noise, hoping to link up with my team before they could make it too far. If they punched a hole in the enemy perimeter, I needed to run through it or risk hitting a wall of enemies too powerful for me to overcome. Suddenly, the noise ended altogether, leaving me to the slamming of my heart amid the panicked cries of birds now bursting through the treetops, fleeing the sounds of battle. It was at this moment, focused like a bloodhound on the last gunfire I'd heard, that I felt quite naked without my GPS. Leaving it behind had been the right move, but that didn't assuage my panic when I mounted a short ridge to see the carnage that my team had inflicted and realized they were gone. 5 enemy fighters were visible at a glance, their bloody bodies sprawled around a small, smoking crater where a grenade had found its mark. One corpse was half blown apart from the blast, his body split and blackened. The others were peppered with debris and bullet wounds, 2 of them appearing semi-conscious, although they'd never again pose a threat. I charged downhill, vaulting the grenade crater and continuing past them without bothering to clean up the site with fatal shots. Khalil could no longer control the countless enemy teams combing this area, but every dickhead within earshot would be converging on the fading sounds of grenades and gunfire. And sure enough, no sooner had this thought crossed my mind than I saw the first responders to arrive. They were coming from 2 directions, my left front and right front, probably 2 separate teams converging toward the noise. I saw the bushes moving before I saw the point men, desperately hoping to thread the gap between them before they saw me. But patches of fatigues were visible through the leaves, seemingly in both directions at once. I swung my barrel to the right, popping 4 rounds and seeing that it did nothing to stop the advance. A suppressed weapon with subsonic rounds was a fantastic tool when moving stealthily, but in a situation like this, when my sole intention was to lay suppressing fire, it was of immeasurable disadvantage. Simply put, these lead fighters didn't know they were being shot at. I flipped my weapon to fully automatic, pouring a long burst at the fighter to my right. My wild spray thwacked through the leaves around him, scoring a lucky hit that sent him stumbling before I swung my barrel left to repeat the process. The fighter to my left was now in the open, almost alongside me, the looming sweep of his AK-47 rising upward to deliver a fatal blast. Rather than stop to aim, I pivoted toward him with a sidestep, as if my goal were to run straight into him. When he encompassed my view, I mashed my trigger down while holding my HK-416 at the hip. This burst succeeded in cutting him down. He was gut-shot, tumbling forward as I leapt away from him, my weapon now empty. Then I was past them both, plunging into the jungle with the hope that the enemy I hadn't yet seen would be too momentarily confused by their respective point men's sudden, silent wounds to give rapid chase. I didn't have much choice. The time it would take me to appraise their intentions, much less reload my now empty rifle, was too great to hazard. I stripped the magazine from my weapon, casting it aside and reloading on the move. There was no more thought of inflicting casualties on the enemy. My team and I were too close to the beach to worry about that now, our only true salvation residing not in the jungle, but on the coastline. Now I had no idea where my team was located, and no GPS to facilitate a link-up even with radio contact. But by the time it occurred to me to transmit to them, my attention was seized by a terrible sound from the high ground to my left. A belt-fed machine gun opened fire, and for a moment I thought the opening salvo was going to rip me apart. There were no bullet impacts, yet the machine gun kept firing long bursts. Any relief at my immediate survival evaporated with the realization that this gun was firing at my team, now somewhere in the low ground beyond. The Night Stalker Rescue is a production of Fathom Curve Media. Written by Jason Kasper, performed by Justin Price and Tara Novi. Sound design by Darren Bowling. Casting and original recording by Audio Sorceress. Produced by Andrew Watts for Fathom Curve Media, an imprint of Severn River Publishing.